So we talked about the idea of regulation at various points, kind of over the series of videos. But what is it? So regulation obviously are just restrictions or rules or controls put in place in the context at the moment of businesses. And in theory, in a perfect world, regulation isn't needed. And the reason that regulation isn't needed is that if we have lots of competitive firms and perfectly well-informed consumers, then we don't actually need to control what it is that businesses do, because consumers will simply choose wisely. If a business isn't giving good enough quality, then consumers won't buy from them. If a business is exploiting them through charging higher prices, then consumers won't go there. And hence, market forces will mean that businesses will be forced to behave themselves. So therefore, what is it that regulators are trying to do? The regulators' goals, primarily, their goals are to enhance competition and to prevent collusion. Because if firms are genuinely competing, well, then this should lead to good outcomes for consumers, and that's what regulators care about. What they care about, is they care about the best outcomes for consumers. So, what is the first thing that a regulator is looking to do? Their primary goal is to try to make sure that competition works in a market. So therefore, they will take actions that will lead to firms actually having to compete with one another on price, on quality, and so on, to provide good outcomes for consumers. But that's not always possible. So there are times when, in reality, competition can't effectively be introduced. So firstly, we want to try and make competition work. That's our first goal. Our second goal is, if competition can't work, if we can't successfully introduce competition into a market, then at that stage we impose direct controls. The regulator will step in to tell businesses what they have to do to provide good outcomes for consumers, because that's the key for what regulators are wanting. So they might put in controls on price, they might put in controls on quality, they might put in controls on information that's being given. They might put in controls on whether or not firms are investing and so on. So if competition can't work, then what might happen is that regulators might decide to directly regulate a market. In the UK, there is a kind of two-part structure in terms of how regulation takes place. On the one hand, if we take the UK, the overall regulator is the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority. Like the costume change there. They're the general regulator responsible for most sectors that don't have anything particularly sensitive or difficult to do. Beneath them, or working alongside them, is a set of watchdog bodies. Most often they're called Ofcom, Ofgem, Ofwat, and so on, but not always. And these are for sectors where they need more continual regulation, because it's so difficult to introduce competition into them, or because they're particularly sensitive. And we'll look at each of those in turn.